Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about the injury crisis facing United, and if in general, 2 games in, United are already in crisis once again. Talk about the press conference, some of the comments that Ten Hag has made, as well as go over a few of the potential still ins and outs in these final 5-6 days of the window. So let's get into it. All right, so number one, yeah, this isn't good. Things are a little bit funky at United right now in terms of injuries, and we seem to be facing almost a mini crisis here. I think I mentioned even in a few videos I was already feeling this way. You know, we are missing Rasmus Højlund, which means, of course, that our front line is not balanced around a striker the way that we want it to be. Obviously, Anthony Martial came on for minutes, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Midfield, Mason Mount out this week. Luke Shaw out. That's 2 of our starting 11. Something is wrong, and I don't know what it is, but you know, United walked into that first game unfit, in my opinion, and they walked into that second game unfit, in my opinion, and now we're having a lot of muscle non-contact injuries, and that is concerning. You know, the fact that, you know, we likely have to line up with Diogo Dalot at left back and have, you know, Alvaro Fernandez be our only left back on the bench, or more likely, I think, is a possibility, is Lindelof at left center back and Lisandro Martinez at left back, so that we have a fullback on the bench if we need to change things up. Something is off. The midfield is going to be back to Eriksen again, maybe McTominay. There's just something wrong, you know, and I thought that one of the things that I really thought in a previous video is that our preseason was a joke, and I said that after Wolves, I think, that the preseason was a joke, and I don't know why, but it seemed extremely poorly thought out in terms of the preparation, and I think unfortunately we're seeing the results of that now. You know, the first 11 didn't play a single game together, all 11 of them. I mean, -1, which was Wan-Bissaka, they did, but it was still, that was it, the Lens game. And, you know, if you look at preseasons past under Jose, Ole, obviously we've seen this before. World Cup summer, the preseason was a joke, really bad start of the year. Jose Mourinho ended up getting sacked. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but you draw the comparisons. Preseason results don't always equate to preseason, to the season, you know, results and how you start. But in terms of preparation and fitness, I think they are connected. Last year, we had a lot of issues, but we shaped up pretty fast after those first 2 games. I didn't think that, I know that they ran a lot. I thought effort was an issue, but I didn't think fitness was an issue. By the 3rd game, we were running hard, playing hard. You could see the fitness was there, even if there had been a lack of confidence. In previous years, I felt the same. We'd have slow starts, but it didn't seem like fitness. It seemed like a confidence issue. This year, I feel it's fitness. I think that we've played better than people are thinking. Overall, I think it's actually not been as bad. I think there's been some really bad play in certain areas, and we'll talk about that with the presser. But fitness is a problem, and now we're seeing these non-contact injuries and muscle injuries. And I don't understand it. You know, with all the midfield games that, all the preseason games that we've had, we should have had a lot more games out of the first 11. We should have had a lot more of the starting team playing 60, 70, 80, 90 minutes and really working on that fitness. Instead, Jadon Sancho played the most minutes and is yet to start. It doesn't make sense. And then we have these friendlies each week where all these players who are super fit from playing all preseason are playing full games during the week. And our starting 11 guys are getting injured in training and are not healthy and are not fit. I think the preparation was off. I think the preparation was very off. And it is kind of looking bad. I don't think it's as bad that as it may seem. The good news about signing Mount is now we're starting with Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno, which is a winning midfield from last year, but it did have a lot of issues. It doesn't really fit the way we've been trying to play this year, and now we don't have Fred anymore to come into that team, who was a huge part of coming in when something happened to Eriksen during a winning run, and McTominay is our only bench option to do something, and I don't like that right now. That is concerning. We don't have a lot of games till the international break, so hopefully, that means that these players will be back, but it sounds like it might be long-term for Shaw. I don't know. I mean, in one respects, we weren't really playing with Shaw, going down the wing and overlapping like he used to, where I think he's better. And so we may miss him a little less, but I think we will still miss him. I think that's why we might see Lisandro Martinez at left back, because of his on-ball abilities and left foot and all of that, and Lindelof at left center back. I think it actually suits how we want to play better than sticking a right footer like Diogo Dalot there. So I'm concerned about our fitness. I'm concerned about injuries. Anthony Martial being healthy helps a lot, because we still have now gives us a lot of options up front. And if he can be healthy, he really fits how we want to play until Rasmus Højlund can come in and can push Rashford back to the left. And please, someone like Sancho on the right. We need to change something there. But that helps a bit. I'm not sure if he'll start, but it helps quite a bit. And then, Rasmus Højlund started team training today. So next week, making his debut versus Arsenal, probably off the bench. I think that is a game for having Martial too, frankly. But I'm concerned. That is a game where we're going to miss Fred being there. We missed him last time when he didn't play, and we'll miss him this time in another big open kind of game where we need that energy. But the fitness levels are going to be tested. The fitness levels are certainly going to be tested by Arsenal, and they better get up to scratch by then, or my hopes will not be too high for that game. Moving on, in the presser, Ten Hag said a couple of things that I actually agree with quite strongly in terms of our gameplay. He says, people are talking about the midfield, but it was the front and the back that are causing the issues. And this I totally agree with. I was talking with a guy, I share his threads on Twitter sometime, Darnish, and he does stuff for Sky as well. Analysis, articles, things like that on tactics and strategy. And one of the things that he believes as well, and I do too, is that despite things kind of looking a little rough at the moment, he actually thinks our play is closer than we think in terms of success, that we actually played pretty well, especially in the first half versus Tottenham. But the biggest issue that he sees, that I see, and I think that Ten Hag sees, is our wing play. Is up front, it's awful. There were so many instances. There's a sequence that's been going around Twitter where Antony passes the ball, loses it. Wan-Bissaka's going this way. Bruno's going with him up front. Passes the ball, loses it. They start turning around and running back. Wins it back again. They run back again. He passes it forward, loses it instantly again in the span of like 5 seconds. And they're like yo-yoing back and forth. And you can see them, and in the same exact play sequence, you can see Mason Mount wide open in the middle of the pitch, way off to the side, waving his hands. And when Antony turns it over, he just throws his hands up in disgust and frustration. Now, I'm not saying that one should do that on the pitch mid-game, but you could see it from all of them. Wan-Bissaka, like, are you kidding me, to run back? Bruno pushed all the way up, and then the cheap giveaway. Mount, waiting for the ball. These turnovers, these cheap turnovers and poor wing play are causing the problems, because gaps will be there in the midfield when you play very attacking front foot football. It is a fact. And Erik Ten Hag's team at Ajax had an issue with transitions and defending, because the way he plays does leave gaps in the midfield, but your wingers and forwards cannot lose the ball in cheap positions. And that has been the biggest issue, then leading to disorganization out the back and things like that. So I kind of agree with it. Now, I think that we're actually, if we can sort out the wing play, I think we'll see a dominant performance versus Forest. And, it feels like it goes one of two ways. This is one of those moments. and it happens early in every season. We either really capitulate and things go to crap, or we turn around and have a really big game. And that really big game is needed. And I think that it can happen if some of the right decisions are made. But I think that it's time for Ten Hag to be ruthless. We cannot play favorites anymore. And there's certain players who have been undroppable. I mean, the stat that Antony has 1 goal since his first 3 games in the Premier League is terrible. That kind of output is unacceptable from a player. Garnacho's done a lot more. And I think Garnacho hasn't been great this start of this year, but that's okay. He can take time, but this is where changes have to be made, where it has to be ruthless, because that is where the play has been not poor, not confused, but downright awful is on the wings, and that has to change. Moving on to a little bit of news. I reported last week that Facundo Pellistri was on, or earlier this week, that Facundo Pellistri was in talks to join a Premier League club, that club being Sheffield United. He had been given the green light by Ten Hag. However, following the Greenwood U-turn on Tuesday or Wednesday, Pellistri was told he would need to stay until at least the weekend. And there's a good chance he could stay now because he is potentially needed. And so right now his move in terms of a loan is on hold, and it looks more like he's going to be staying at United. I don't mind that as long as he keeps playing. If he keeps getting those 15, 20-minute sub appearances, hopefully in better circumstances than the Tottenham game. But he's been a bright spark, and he has been for a year now, and he has been whenever he's come on. And he has a lot to learn. I think he pushes it a little too hard, but that's normal. That's the same thing. But you like to see him being direct, taking a man on, and being one of our only wingers that actually gets to the line to try to put crosses in. And he should have had a penalty versus Tottenham too. So I'm not mad about it. And I would like to see, if we cannot start Sancho on the right for some reason, I would like to see Pellistri get a game there. Maybe not yet, but for now, some good sub appearances and such would be worthwhile. The other thing, United have been looking at, and I think I've mentioned before, this Marcus Leonardo player. They've been looking at a lot of young players, under 21s, things like that. As I talked about in a previous video, there's this player from Croatia that they're looking at signing, and those are real talks. They've been looking at one of the real things they wanted to focus on was the fact that, and this ties into future FFP restrictions, that you want to have kind of like how Barcelona, Madrid have done really well, and Chelsea even, where you have like a level where you have an under 21 player that could start getting minutes in almost any position and be someone who could break in. So instead of constantly having to buy stars, you've got your 2, like let's say Wan-Bissaka and Dalot. You get an under 21 player in there who could start getting some minutes. You can sell one of those players, one of those senior players, and have the other under 21 take his minutes and potentially push up into a starter. And that's not going to work for every position, but some positions it will. Some positions it absolutely will, and good investment can do that. And the areas where United feel like they have no youth options to come through now are striker, right wing, right back, center back. Those are the main positions now. They've been working on a lot of the midfield. They've got a lot of left backs. They've got some wingers. They've got some good midfielders in Kabi Manu and other ones coming through, and Isaac, Aaron Hansen and such. And so, and Dan Gore. So they've got a few coming through there, but they're looking to add in those positions. Now, Marcus Leonardo is a bit more of potentially like a senior player if he were to come in. They've been looking at it, and from what I understand, it's a deal that would be tough to do, and that right now there's better offers from Europe, including, I think, Roma. So I don't think it'll happen. But it is one United have been looking at. They've been in contact for some time. I just don't think that, it's there to be done. I don't think that United are prepared to spend and to make a move like that right now. I think they've been evaluating getting a striker, getting a forward in. Erik Ten Hag has been asking for one, especially since the Mason Greenwood thing. I know he thinks he needs one. That's why Pellistri's not going on loan. But I don't know that it's going to happen. Like I said, honestly, I'm starting to feel like we're done in summer. That's how it feels. It's just starting to feel that way. When we're looking at a panic left back signing in Ryan Bertrand or something because Luke Shaw is injured, this isn't good. This isn't good. So let's talk about that in terms of the midfield. It was reported that with Mason Mount's injury, that Scott McTominay might have to stay. And here's how crazy it is, okay? You had Casemiro, Bruno, and Mount as your first three. Then you had Eriksen and Mainu. And Scott was told, and this is why Fred left, that Scott was told you have limited to no minutes. Fred, limited to no minutes, so you know you're 30. We don't want to hold you. We'll let you go and keep going in your career. Now, Mainu gets injured, so then Scott's told, okay, well, you'll have some minutes until Mainu comes back. You probably want to look for somewhere to go because Kobbie Mainu is going to be the 6. And Eriksen's there in the other position, and, and then Mount gets injured too. But here's the thing. It doesn't make sense, except in Glazer economics, to say we can't buy a midfielder because of injury to Mount, because Scott might be needed, but he'd be sold to buy a mid. It's 1-to-1. If Scott leaves and Amrabat comes in, it's 1-to-1. It's the same thing. It's the same, except you have to go and spend some money to do it and get it done because you're not getting all of the sale up front. And it just feels like that. And so I think that I don't know what's going on. There's one of two things happening right now because, like I said, they've been evaluating all these players, these midfielders, these forwards, etc. A lot of it is probably being prepped for next year at this point is how it feels to me. Like the center back names I gave, like Yeremy Pino for a right wing if Anthony doesn't shape up this year. But they've been looking at options. There's options like Verratti, which are expensive, but obviously would solve a huge problem. But here's what I don't know. Because it's either one of two things, and it's depending on your view. And I'm choosing at the moment to be a little pessimistic because that's just how it feels. It's either one, they're evaluating these more expensive options. I said a while back, Amrabat wouldn't be first choice. They'd rather go for someone more effective, long-term like Onana or someone like that. Or in a different profile, like a loan for Gravenberch coming in more as an 8, but to fit the current style. But it is confusing. It's either they're evaluating all these options while looking at still moves for McTominay because they don't want to get Amrabat, or they're not planning on making any more signings this summer. And it may be, I've been here, but we've been here before. One of the things that happens is, the Glazers will stop and say things are done, but they don't tell everybody that. The CEO knows, and oftentimes even the director of football manager don't know. This was like kind of the thing that went on during that Sancho summer was that the deal was off, and Ed Woodward knew it, and Joel knew it. Actually, Joel knew it first because he was talking to people directly, which is insane. And they didn't tell the manager until the final week. Until the final days. They had things ready to say no more, that there was no Sancho signing, that they were prepared to do, that they only buried after they got to announce all these little signings on deadline day. They had the brief ready, and then they went in for him the next year, and that's the only reason they've been briefed on him. But I'm suspicious because it's starting to feel like that moment where they're ready to say this is what we could do with the summer while being within the limitations of FFP and, understanding the financial thing, because somehow they managed to do all the spending and then walk it back down to where they've spent, a pretty ordinary amount when a lot more was needed. And it started off looking ambitious and it's not. And my suspicion is it's either one, they're evaluating these targets in case they can move McTominay, and they're trying and they want to get in a really good player, or there's nothing happening. And it may appear something's happening, they still may be working, but the money is not there, it's not getting approved, and it's not being signed off on. I feel like our window is over. That's the feeling that I get right now. And I don't think it's as bad as people think. I think that temporarily we're having a little bit of a crisis, mostly due to injuries. I think when Højlund comes in, it makes a huge difference, and Ten Hag sorts out that front three. I think we'll have a really good season because I think that's the biggest thing that needs sorting. And then we just need some people to get healthy. We really do. Otherwise, I really like our starting 11 once everybody's healthy. I really like the team. I don't love the midfield depth at all. That I don't love, and I think that's a problem. And I think that the forward depth is actually okay when Højlund comes back. And if Martial can play a bit part role without getting injured, then that would be helpful. So, yeah, that's the feeling. So that's everything that I've got for today. Obviously, we're expecting changes to Forest. I think it's going to be changes on the wings. It's going to be changes up front, 1 or 2 changes up front. I think Rashford will start, but it's going to be maybe Martial, maybe Sancho. I could see coming in the midfield. I think you'll see Eriksen. At left back, I think you're going to see Martinez with Lindelof in. That's my prediction. So Martinez or Lindelof in for Shaw, and then swap Eriksen in for Mount. And I'm going to predict Sancho and Martial in up front. I don't know that. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll be Anthony, Sancho, and Rashford. But I'm just thinking Martial and Sancho and Rashford. I want to see that front 3 play. So that's what I've got for today. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.